All right, everyone. I just want to drop in a quick disclaimer here. Let you guys all know that we had some audio issues with this episode. So, just to give you guys a heads up that there might be a couple sections where we're cutting in and out a little weird. We're going to make sure to get this fixed for you guys next week. Go ahead and enjoy the episode. All right, everyone, we are back with the Bouncing Back podcast. This is episode 4. We're going to try to bounce it back after that rough week of locks of the week last week. But hey, we're here. We're ready to talk lots of sports for you guys and get this discussion going. So I'm one of your co-hosts, Wes McKnight, and I'm joined here with Jack Blackwell. Jack, why don't you go ahead and kick it off? Tell us how you've been doing.
I'm good, Wes. I'm good. All is well here in Kentucky. It's really starting to get cold. Every time we do a podcast, I mention it's getting colder. I think outside today it was like 30 degrees, so that's starting to drive me nuts. But it was good. I had a fun Halloween weekend. This was the first time, I had a house where trick-or-treaters came, and we didn't end up doing anything Halloween weekend. So I'll say this, we were very unprepared for the amount of trick-or-treaters we got. I mean, I never would have imagined um, the amount of kids that came to our door. And it was to the point where we actually ran out of candy. Like, we were those people. We ended up, me and Amber turned off all the lights. We went to the back room and we just kind of chilled out because we were scared that, someone was going to knock on the door. And I just don't think I'd be able to tell a kid I don't have candy. I even told Amber, I said, hey, if someone knocks on the door, I think there are Pop Tarts in the cabinet, and I was gonna hand them Pop Tarts. Um, so yeah, I mean, it was a fun weekend though. I had a good Saturday night with some friends, and that was more my going out. And then, like I said, just kind of stayed home and saw the trick or treaters. And I guess what's interesting, so if you probably drive, you could probably get 30 minutes outside of Louisville. You kind of get into more of a kind of farmland area. There's lots of land out there and everything. Houses are a little spaced out. And so I think what happens is, all these communities that are farther out, kind of get in the car and drive to these communities that are closer to the city, that have houses that are closer to each other. And because I realized something the whole weekend, Saturday and Sunday, because some neighborhoods did trick or treating on Saturday, just because Sunday was a school night, I guess, for the kids. But I noticed, there were tons and tons of cars that were parking on the side of streets in these neighborhoods, including mine. And like, I guess people were just pulling up and hopping out, and trick or treating. And it's never something that I had seen before. But I was curious, is that something you see in Parkersburg? Like, have you ever heard of that? Maybe some of those people a little farther out would just kind of drive in on Halloween night.
Yeah, I've heard of that a little bit. So I know one of my good friends, if you've met him before, Hunter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, you're familiar with Hunter. He lived out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm pretty sure they did something similar, but they were driving to like one of it's like grandma's house or something like that. But for the most part, I mean, Parkersburg
Probably
wasn't
you could
that far
probably
out in the
get like an hour out of Parkersburg and be a little more spaced out, right?
Yeah, yeah, you can. That's about around where Hunter lives. So yeah, there
Okay.
were there were some
You know,
people that came in.
it's funny you bring up Hunter because I remember meeting Hunter and he was awesome. I had a really good time. I think we even went fishing, right?
Yeah, I think so. Out at shoot, where were we at? Mountwood Park, I
Okay.
think, for trout.
I don't know. Sounds right. We were doing something. But anyways, the reason it's funny is because it was one of the first times I went to stay with you at your house, right?
Hmm.
So one of my first times in Parkersburg, and I remember going out there the first time, and we pulled up, and on their property they had coyotes hanging, that
Oh
they had
yeah.
just hunted, and
Yep.
I'd never seen something like that. Like, it just, I mean, we're pulling up to this house and like I see them and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, why are we in a haunted movie or something? And obviously that's just my, ignorance and, growing up not so out there or experienced so little, so to speak. But it was just so funny. I remember pulling up and just wondering what the hell we were getting into, seeing these coyotes hanging from the tree. But
Yep.
But anyways, but how was your Halloween weekend? Everything good over there?
Yeah, it was pretty good, man. I mean, we didn't do any passing out of candy, so I live in an apartment complex that really we don't have a whole lot of kids running around here. And if we do have kids in the complex, they're probably going out in like the neighborhoods nearby. Like they're not going to hang out around the apartment to get candy. They wouldn't get a whole lot. So we didn't pass out any candy, but we did go downtown with some friends on Saturday night. Grabbed a couple beers at a local brewery, went out to dinner, and then we went to like a haunted house. Actually, it was good. It wasn't like Fright Farm, but it was well put together. It wasn't super scary, but it was fun to go out and do something. I mean, but by the time I got to the haunted house, I was seeing double of everything anyway, so it was a good time.
Right. Who knows what's going on at that point?
Yep, yep. So yeah, overall good weekend, man. Halloween was a good time. But why don't we go ahead and kick off the show? You ready for that?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So first thing we got to talk about here is we just got to keep the trend going of these coaches and their poor decisions. Uh, did you? So I have to start out. You showed me this. Well, we were talking before the show, saying, okay, what coach can we talk about? What coaching news is out there this week? So while doing a little research, Jack and I actually stumbled upon something that I personally did not hear going into this episode. What about you, Jack?
I know, I since last week when I mentioned that we were gonna start kind of bringing in something about coaches every week. There's gonna be a theme, kind of maybe even an intro into kind of getting into sports and stuff. And so I kept my eyes out for stuff, all today and the past couple days,
Yep.
just waiting to hear it because it seems like it's regular news at this point. Some coaches doing something bizarre, and
Yep.
that's when I first I didn't even capture what happened, right? I think
Okay.
I read a headline somewhere and I thought it was ESPN. I'm now realizing it couldn't have been ESPN because it was like football coaches stripper monkey attacks kid or something like that. And I read it and I was like, what the hell? And what is going on here? And I didn't really give it much thought. And then when we were talking right before we started recording everything, it kind of came back to light. And man, it's pretty nuts. You kind of let people know what we're working with here and who exactly?
Yeah, I'll jump into it, man. So this is crazy. So Texas is I think he's a special teams coach by the name of Jeff Banks. So he has a girlfriend named Daniel Thomas, and she's actually an exotic dancer. So yeah, I mean that's already an interesting thing right off the bat from a
Right.
coach from
That's
Texas
just
University is
that's what
dating an
happened.
exotic dancer. But hey, whatever. Her nickname is actually uh, Pole Assassin, and this has nothing to do with the story, but I thought it was funny.
What a great name.
Yeah, but anyway, so allegedly, she had a Halloween party this weekend. To my understanding, I'm trying to pull up the actual story here.
No, I
I
think what
I
it
far
was, I'll intervene here for a
Yep.
second. I think what they were doing is it was Halloween night, and they kind of transformed their house into like not like a haunted house, but a little walk you do. So
Yep.
the kids instead of just walking up and grabbing candy, they would kind of go through their yard with various things set up to whatever scare them or
Mhm.
whatever you do on Halloween night. But I believe that's what it was, and please correct me if I'm wrong. But
Yep.
if
Yep. That's
okay,
100% accurate. So from that point, I guess someone was walking through the house, a little haunted house thing they had going on, and they have a pet monkey. All right, so this exotic dancer has a pet monkey that actually used to go and be part of her shows, which I thought was also
I was
extremely
gonna bring that
interesting.
up. I was gonna say that has to be, they were a team, okay? Which I want to know what the monkey's name was. All right, if we're working with Pole Assassin, what's the monkey's name? But
Let me see
I
if I
don't,
can
I
find
don't
it.
know if we get that. I don't know if we get
Yeah, I don't see it on here.
that.
But anyway, I guess a child was walking through this little haunted house thing they had going on, and the monkey actually bit the child. All right, so it bit the child, and supposedly it actually injured the child quite a bit. So serious injuries were
Yeah,
reported.
sorry for laughing. All right, it sounds funny, but like it's
I
kind of
know.
funny.
I know, but dude, this is wild. So we have a Texas University football coach, special teams coach. Um, so he's for one just dating this exotic dancer that has a monkey that got attacked a kid during a haunted house at their actual home during trick or treat. Like, what the hell did I just say? I mean, how does this make any sense?
Look, it's bizarre, but as you're telling that, I'm thinking to myself, and I'm realizing something. Was this a mistake, right? Or is this a recruiting plea, right? Hey, come play for me. My wife's a stripper and I own a monkey, right? I don't know many high school age guys who are going to say no to that. But now, seriously, it's nuts. It's so funny that, another or not head coach, but coach, and then, another football coach who had background in college at the very least, kind of works his way into the news, and just crazy that happens on Halloween night. I know I laughed, and it's a shame that the trick or treater got hurt, and obviously we don't want that, but it's just bizarre. I've never heard you see or hear things about a dog biting someone, or I've even heard things about like a bird. Someone puts their finger in a bird cage and they get nipped, right? But this will be the first I've heard of a monkey
Dude,
going after
you
someone.
gotta watch out for the monkeys, man.
I
They'll
guess
attack you.
so.
They'll hurt you.
I don't
Yeah.
disagree.
So I guess this is his wife, because her last name is now Banks. So
Okay.
it's kind of interesting as well. But yeah, this is crazy. I mean, I'm interested to see like how long can we keep this going? Like every week, are we gonna have some sort of coaches news that we can sit here and talk about?
I mean, at this point, I don't see how it won't happen. I mean, it wasn't even on purpose. If we would have told ourselves when we made the pilot episode, or whenever we started talking about it, which was maybe the first or the second, but we said, "Hey, we're gonna bring up a coach every week," right? I would have been like, "You're an idiot." There's not enough news. No one, but this stuff is just bizarre for now 3 weeks. Just something crazy with one of these coaches. So
And what's
it's a
even
good time.
crazier is every single one of these stories has to do with a woman.
It is true.
Someone they're dating or
It
something in a
that
bar. Like what is going on here, guys?
that that is an interesting take. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know who's to blame. I blame the football coach, but who knows?
Yeah. Let's keep talking about college football though, real quick. I want to jump into something else that we have on the docket for today. So the college football playoffs released their first rankings this past Tuesday. And I kind of just want to run through these real quick and then have some conversation around it. And I'm just interested to hear your opinion. So I'll go ahead and just kind of run down the top 10 and talk about how they have them ranked at this point, and then we'll just open it up for discussion. So they got number 1 Georgia at 8-0, number 2 Alabama at 7-1, number 3 Michigan State at 8-0, Oregon at 7-1, Ohio State at 7-1. Cincinnati at 8-0, Michigan at 7-1, Oklahoma at 9-0, Wake Forest at 8-0, Notre Dame at 7-1, and that rounds out the top 10. So that's the top 10. Just real quick, Jack, what's your initial reactions to that list?
I'm not too big of an advocate for college football. That being said, it's always tricky when it comes to the rankings. I think these are pretty poor. Just kind of looking at it, the one that I think stands out the most to me is Oklahoma, right? I think everyone, and the reason that they're eight is they've had their time when they're playing, where they didn't necessarily look like the best team, but they're 9-0 at a Power Five school. That's pretty crazy. So to think that they're at eight with other teams, Michigan, Oregon, Ohio State, 7-1 seems kind of nuts. And the one thing that I wonder, and I'd be curious to hear your opinion of this, but if Spencer Radler came out this year, the supposed best quarterback, this year, that's what everyone was saying preseason. If he came out and he was that, because now what is he completely benched now?
Yep.
Yeah.
He's the backup QB.
Okay. So if he wasn't benched and he came out and he was, like I said, he was supposed to be, wouldn't you do you think they'd be higher? Do you think if everything went the way it was supposed to for Oklahoma, then they might be 4 or 5, maybe even higher.
I do, but like I still don't think it makes sense that they're that low.
Right.
I do agree with what you're saying. So if they would have went out, I mean, he was a Heisman contender to be in this year. I mean,
Right.
they thought he was going to be a top 5 draft pick and go on to play in the NFL as a starting QB. And I mean, it's just been I wouldn't say it's been a bust for him, but they've had Caleb Williams sitting behind him now, and you could tell they just wanted to start him. So things did not work out in his favor. But I do agree, if he would have went in and things would have went according to plan, he would have started. They've still been 9-0. I do think they'd be higher, but why does that matter? And that's my question. So I'll be very upfront and just say that I mean I think these rankings are bullshit. Like I really do. And I could go into my feelings about the college football playoffs, and I will. But I'll just start just solely at the rankings themselves. So we have Alabama at 7-1 at number 2. Why is a one-loss team ahead of let's say one, two, three, 4 other great zero-loss teams in the top 10? How
Right.
does that make any sense? And we're not just talking about zero-loss teams that are outside of Power 5 schools. I mean, we're looking at Michigan State. We're looking at Oklahoma. Okay, I mean these are good football programs. They've been playing good talent the entire season in great conferences. How does that make any sense? Okay,
Yeah.
and
No, I
and
agree, and it makes you question how much politics is involved in the rankings. But go on.
100%, and that's what, and we this will loop back around to a second to how I think about just the committee itself. But if you go through, so that's just the first thing that bothers me the most is like how is Alabama still up there? They're a one-loss team. What's so special that's keeping them up? I don't think they're all that talented. But if we continue to drop down, my biggest thing is Cincinnati. Dude, this is a good football team. This is a team that went undefeated in the regular season last year and then went on to barely lose to Georgia, which is the number 1 football team in the nation right now in their bowl game. So why are they at 6? Why are they sitting at 6? Why did they drop so many positions coming from the coaches poll just the week prior? It just doesn't make any sense to me, man. It really doesn't.
No, and you talk about a team like Cincinnati. And they're beating good teams.
Yep.
Like you look at the teams that they're playing this year, a lot of these arguments, and maybe even with Cincinnati specifically, is that hey, maybe they're not playing as good of teams as Alabama, but that doesn't change the fact that you look at these teams past and then what they've come out to do this year, the wins that they've gotten, and by how much. I'm pretty sure Alabama's had a few close games.
Yeah. They have, and that's what it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, man. And I tell you what, you get into the politics a little bit, and this is kind of what I want to talk on, or a little bit from this point, and kind of expand on this. Is I think there has to be a change. I think this is the biggest flawed system and truly ruining college football. Our current playoff system now. So you got a bunch of old presidents that are on this committee, basically ranking these teams. And they're sitting there trying to say, like, yeah, we're watching every game. Dude, these are 60-year-old men. They're sitting on their recliners, knocked out at like 6 p.m. How are they watching every single game?
Oh,
Like,
no shot.
there's no way. And they're sitting there and they're ranking these schools, but every single one of them have some sort of attachment to a Power 5 school. And there's so much bias associated with it. And then you're going to say, hey, we're only going to take 4 teams. So we're going to have all these old men go out there, pick these teams, pick these 4 teams. Meanwhile, ESPN is the one kind of controlling these rankings and pushing it. I mean, who do you think they're going to pick? They're going to pick the schools that had the biggest TV pool, the biggest fan base that's going to show up. And it doesn't. The system is just flawed. It's ruining college football because there's only 3 or 4 schools that are actually getting recruits now. So it's basically Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, and then everybody else, and that's it.
No, yeah, it's pretty crazy, and you already mentioned the playoffs being messed up. Honestly, I think all of college football in 10 years is going to be completely different from what it is now. Like I don't know how it's going to be. I just there's no way that this is going to continue just because the issues that you're talking about, and then you work in some of the things about players getting paid, stuff like that. I just think the structure that is current is not going to be around for much longer. I say 10 years, but I think that movement's going to happen far before that. But I just think 10 years it will be set that it will be significantly different.
100%. I 100% agree. So I guess a quick question for you: if you were to change the playoffs right now, what would you do? Would you expand it? Would you keep it at 4? What changes would you make?
I think about this all the time. I go back and forth. It's tough because you're asking these college kids to play in a lot of games, and they're not at what they want to be the peak yet. When you start to get into those longer seasons, and I think that's why we haven't seen a bigger playoffs is because once you get into those later games, you see a lot more injuries, things like that. Um, so I don't know how I would change. I think at the very least I think you have to go to a 16 playoff. And I'd almost be this is so hard to say, but and there'd have to be a clear division. But I'd be interested to see if there was a way to do it where it's purely based on record. You know,
Hmm.
like I said, I understand the complications that come along with that. I'm no college football expert, so I'm not. I'd like to see something more based on actual record. But then also, it looks like Cincinnati might go
Hmm.
undefeated again, right? But if you look at these polls, undefeated, what you're saying, so that team to not make the playoffs, I think it's bogus. It
Dude,
doesn't
it's
make
a
sense,
complete
you
crime,
know.
man. Just let them in. Let them play, and if you really don't think that they deserve to be there, let that show up like when they make it. But give them a shot. I mean, they played with Georgia last year in the bowl game. Why do they not deserve a chance if they go undefeated this year?
Yeah, it's a valid question.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think they need to change the playoffs immediately.
And
I
how
I
so?
so That's a good question. I think there is a couple ways they could do it, but if I was fully in charge right now, what I would change it to, is so you have your Power Five conference champions. All right, so no matter what, they get in. All right, so just if you're a Power Five school and you're a conference champion, you get in. So what you're doing there is you're saying, okay, it is based off record because every team at the start of their season knows exactly what they need to do. If they go in, they win their conference, they get in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think from that point, I would take the first highest non-power five schools. So you're going to have some sort of rankings in there. Okay. But that would be Cincinnati. So right now, Cincinnati would be that team that's in. They would be in last year. I think that makes sense. Say, hey, I'm taking the non or highest ranked non-power five school, and then from there I'll do two wild cards. So it's 8 teams. And I understand there's not a bye there, which some people would argue is not a good thing. But you're expanding the opportunity to every conference to have someone that's represented, and then you're also giving someone a chance outside of those Power Five schools. And then you talk about the seasons being long. I agree, but I would just cut one of the games off at the beginning. I mean, the season doesn't have to be as long. And if you're doing that and you're saying, hey, if I win my conference, I think what you're likely to see is these early games are going to be scheduled. People are going to schedule harder games because
Right.
it doesn't matter what happens if they go on to win their conference. They would actually rather lose, like a high state would rather lose to an Alabama. Let's just say that, because it looks better if they play them close. And
Right.
then nothing else matters because they're going to go play their conference after that point. So
Hmm.
I think that would be my solution if I had complete control. But we got to do something. I mean, it's just ruining college football.
Yeah, but I mean, but then what do you do when you have two SEC teams, in the championship that are, all one loss teams? Yeah, and like at that point, do you justify bringing in someone that's not in a Power Five conference just because that one team that should be there had to play against the other team? Does that make sense? Like that's my only flaw in that. Like I don't know what you would do in that example. Say let's say what the Big 12 was. Texas and Oklahoma were the best two teams in the nation, right? It would never happen, but just for the example. And then they go on and they play in the Big 12 championship, and then Texas loses, right? So Oklahoma goes, but now you have a team Texas whose only losses would now be two would be to Oklahoma,
Yeah.
or what do you do about it? I mean, I guess this is just the nature of playoffs, but if Texas beats Oklahoma in the regular season, they go into the playoffs, and then Oklahoma beats Texas. I don't know. It's just it's a tough situation.
Yeah.
That's why I don't think any of this is gonna. To be honest, I think in 10 years you're gonna have like one league. It's
I
gonna
agree.
be the best of the Power Five schools. Is going to be one league, and they're going to play in a standard season with a standard playoff bracket, and then you're going to see what we see now with the rest of the grid.
Okay. All right. So we're back after some technical difficulties, but just wrapping up a discussion around college football. Is there anything else you want to add, or do you think it's time to move on, Jack?
I think that's all there is for me. I long for the day where West Virginia could be in the conversation of, a good football team, but not anytime soon.
Yep. Yep. All right. So what next I kind of want to jump into here is something that we should have touched on last weekend, but it honestly kind of slipped my mind, and it's a really funny story coming from well, first a great accomplishment, and then followed by a funny story that I'm just kind of interested to hear your opinion, and that's Tom Brady's 600th touchdown pass. So if we go back to last week's game against who were they playing? It's kind of
Wow! Don't even say that.
I'm
Put
gonna
him.
bleep. I'm gonna bleep that out.
Yeah, dude, come on.
I'm sorry.
Put on the spot.
You can find it.
Oh my god. Um, do, do, do.
We're off for game tonight.
This is a rough one. It went all so smooth. It was was it the
Chicago.
Titans game? No,
Chicago.
like yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't bleep all that out. Take it
All
all
right.
out.
I'm just gonna start again. All right.
Okay.
So, all right, we're back after a little bit of technical difficulties. So we're kind of done talking about college football, but we're going to We're going to jump right into the NFL. So we want to first touch on a story that we were going to touch on last weekend, but it kind of slipped our mind. That's around Tom Brady throwing his 600th career passing touchdown to Mike Evans. But what's even crazier about that is, hey, we all know Tom Brady's the GOAT. That's not surprising. But what happens afterwards is Mike Evans actually gives the ball to a fan. All right. So it doesn't even get back to Tom Brady, but instead hands it to a fan up in the stands.
Yeah, that's bizarre. I mean, I was hyped. Mike Evans touchdown. That's all pluses in the fantasy aspect. But it's hilarious to see him hand that ball off. Like Tom just looking at him too. Oh no, what a disaster.
And it's funny too because in an interview after, Tom Brady goes in and talks about how he doesn't hold on to a lot of like the balls and collectibles and stuff like that. But he said, "Hey, the 600th ball or touchdown ball, he sets the record, um, or has the record. I kind of want that."
Right.
But Mike Evans goes ahead and gives it away to a fan. But what happens next is the crazy part. Is then someone from the Tampa Bay organization actually goes to this guy and tries to get the ball back. And the fan does. So he actually trades the ball and for two signed jerseys from Tom Brady, a signed helmet from Tom Brady, a signed jersey and cleats from Mike Evans, $1,000 credit to the Tampa Bay store, 2 season passes for the remainder of this season as well as next season. And then it was later revealed in the Manning cast that Brady also gave Kennedy a whole Bitcoin. Dude, this is nuts for one. But if you were in this guy's shoes, would you trade this football back?
Yeah, this is bizarre. Like I'm trying to put myself into perspective. Like I am a Bucks fan. Mike Evans just caught a touchdown. He tosses me the ball, right? I'm hyped. Can't believe it. It's amazing. Then I realize I am reminded that that's Tom Brady's 600th, touchdown. Even better. And then all of a sudden, this guy from the organization approaches me, and he starts negotiations. I think it would be tough to get that ball out of my hands, right? So that is my initial inclination. But when I thought about it in hindsight, I think I would. And for the deal he got, and I think we'll get into this in a second, but it's not that great of a deal for what's in his hands, right? But I think I would give it back solely on the fact that I would not want to be in the center of the news as the bad guy. There's no way that would somehow blow up. Someone would make a story that Tom Brady asked for that ball, and this fan, being myself, did not give it back, and then I'd be the bad guy. And what makes it 10 times worse is in a month I'd sell the damn thing, and so I'd just turn my shoulder towards Tom Brady. If I was not, say, I'm a Washington fan, right? Say Tom Brady played for Washington or played for Dallas, sorry, and Dallas, he's, let's say, he threw his 600th pass to me, and as a Washington fan, I got that ball. I'm not giving it back. Like, screw you, you're not on my team. But if I'm a Bucks fan, I don't think how you cannot give it back.
Yeah, I tell you what, I don't really agree with you on this one.
Oh.
And I know this might be a little controversial, and I understand, yeah, you'd be the bad guy. And let's just state, like, from this article, it's believed that this ball would be worth anywhere between $500,000 to $900,000 at auction. So obviously, just on the trade alone, it's not great. All right, so it's just really not. But here's my theory to the whole thing: is yeah, the guy's a fan, so I get it. He wants to give the ball back to Tom Brady. But at the end of the day, Tom Brady has millions and millions of dollars. I mean, the guy's loaded. And this is the Tom Brady's 600th football pass. I understand it was a mistake, but I'm holding on to this damn ball.
Oh,
And I'm not going to sell it at auction right away. I actually think I would hold on to it for years and years and years, because that one day, it's going to be worth multi-millions of dollars, okay? And Tom Brady or Tom Brady's kid is just going to buy the damn thing back off me. So
it's an interesting take.
I'm keeping this ball.
No, I was against what you were saying, because you brought up Tom Brady has a bunch of money. Like, this is definitely not something he's looking to, invest in, Tom Brady, so to speak. I don't think there's monetary value in that ball. So I don't think that plays a part. But the fact that you brought up the fact that Tom Brady's kid would buy that ball, like, you'd sell it to him later, that's, I don't know, that's even more fucked up. Like, what if Tom Brady's on his deathbed, right? He's like, all I want you to do is give the ball to my son. You're like, nah, dude, it's 2.5 right now. Once it gets to 3, I'll sell it back. Like, you're crazy. And I don't, to be 100% honest, Wes, I'm going to call you out because I don't believe you. I think if you were at a Browns game and Baker Mayfield was Tom Brady and I don't know, Jarvis Landry threw you up that ball, I think and they're like, "Hey, we're going to give you all this shit." Like, I think you'd give the ball back. I mean, people would bring that up to you forever. Like, and you'd, like I said, you'd be on ESPN, you'd be the bad guy. I don't think I could do it. Although I will say, and once again, this all happened quick. That's another thing to keep in mind. It's not like this guy had the opportunity to sit down, say this ball is worth 500,000, even more right now, stuff like that. But I think if it was me, I'd like to think that I would have asked for more. Like, he didn't even know he was getting the Bitcoin, so that's huge. But, like, game or cleats, signing Tom Brady jerseys and Mike Evans, that shit's cool. It's stuff you hang up in your basement, but it's not stuff that can make you rich. Like,
Yep.
That ball could not make you rich, but it could get you very well off.
Yep, I completely agree. I guess another perspective to this, though, is do you honestly think this guy would have made it out of the stadium with this ball?
Oh, I would.
He would have kept it?
See, I mean, I think you'd have to ask for security, But at that point, security's probably gonna be like, "Fuck you!" Like
Yeah, like
Tom,
would they give it to you?
yeah, Tom Brady specifically called up and said no one helped that guy. And so
Yeah.
that's a funny thing to think about.
And to your point about the Browns, good thing I'll never have to worry about that because Baker's a
Yeah.
trash can.
Hey,
But
hey.
I
Apparently,
don't
so
know,
would his
man.
father. So would his father.
Yep.
Hey,
If I could if I could get that ball out and safely, I mean, it's not even really about the money, even though it would be. I joked around about his kid buying it and so on. Um, but just to have that ball, I mean, how cool of a collector's item would that be to have and really have ownership of? Money aside, so it is tough. I don't know. I think
you know what
I would have trouble
it
not keeping
reminds
it.
me of? You ever seen the movie Kicking and Screaming? Hilarious Will Ferrell movie.
Yep, yep,
I don't watch a lot of movies, but I have seen this one. And Will Ferrell has, who is it? Is it like the Pele ball or something
yep,
like that?
yep.
Or his brother had, I don't know, or dad, one of them had it, and it was like the cherished prize. I can imagine you with like 50 years, like sitting on your couch, no TV in the room, just a fireplace and the football sitting up there, like, fuck you, Tom Brady.
Yeah. Yeah, it just helps that I dislike Tom Brady. No, I'm just kidding. He's all right. He's all right. Yeah, so let's keep it rolling with the NFL, man. I mean, we have a lot of news this week around NFL receivers. So, some good, some fun to talk about, and some just really, really bad, and then bad stuff that we are going to talk about, but it's just really unfortunate circumstances. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I do want to start first with probably the worst out of the bunch, but I do think it's important for us to have some discussion on this, and that's around Henry Ruggs. So for those that don't know, Henry Ruggs was in a car accident Tuesday morning. Where he was intoxicated driving his Corvette at 200. It is, I guess they're linking it back to say on impact it was around 225 miles per hour. But they're actually seeing that he was going somewhere around 156 miles per hour before he hit another car and ended up killing a woman. So I mean, this is just tough, and to be honest with you, I don't have any respect for him at all at this point. But I would never condone drunk driving ever, and no one ever should ever jump in a car while intoxicated. I'm very much against it. But it is something we want to talk about, and I guess Jack, what kind of thoughts you got around this?
Yeah, I mean this is an absolutely awful situation. I was really upset when I heard this because it's a couple things. I mean, a drunk driving incident like this, that's rough. You never want to see it. It's such a shame, such a stupid thing to do, and to have results like this, very unfortunate. But then to see someone like Henry Ruggs behind the wheel of it, and this is a guy who's fresh into the league. The ceiling is nowhere in sight, right? And now he's going to be sleeping in jail, and it's super rough, super unfortunate. And to add to all that, there was a loaded gun. I don't know why I think that's significant, but I think that's interesting. Like, I mean, what it happened at like 4 in the morning. It's
Yeah,
like, what are you doing? You're an NFL, I don't want to say an NFL star, but you're a well-known, up and coming NFL player. What are you doing at 3 a.m. with a loaded gun? Driving, you know, 156 miles per hour while you're drunk. You
yeah,
know, I mean, it's yeah, I don't know. It's tough to talk about. It's hard. Prayers out for the family and for the girls he killed. Um, but yeah, just a rough situation. I wish this wasn't the news that I was seeing. It does make wow, I'm terrible for this, but it does make the Raiders situation a little more interesting. I mean, I did pick up Henry Renfro off waivers this week, but
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's like you said, it's just not a good situation. But I do think it's important to talk about. It does beg for some questions around. I mean, he was a 22-year-old kid that got into a ton of money. I mean, the guy just was like, think about that. He was playing football when he was able to legally drink. It does kind of make you question or football in the NFL when he was first able to legally drink. It does make you question, like, is this a good thing that we're just handing these people all this money? That, I mean, yeah, they worked towards like hard work. They've spent a lot of time doing it, but it's still just a big culture shock. I'm 22 years
Yeah.
old, and you have to think that if he was still in college right now, like, would he be driving a Corvette that could go 156 miles per hour? Like, it's a tough situation. It's fruit for thought, that's for sure.
I don't know about that. I'm all for, getting the youngsters paid. I love it.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know. But, one thing I will bring up, and I'm interested to hear your take on this. Do you think that this potentially could have been avoided? I don't want to say that, but wouldn't have happened had the stuff with Gruden happened. So I imagine that things locker room wise are kind of a mess, right? And I'd be
Yep.
curious to know if kind of, what's happening off the field is getting as close of attention as it should be. Cause just because there's so many moving parts right now, new coach, all this stuff. I'd be interested, and I'm not saying it's, Gruden's fault or anything like that, but I'd be interested to see, or I'll think about if maybe this stuff didn't happen with John Gruden, if Ruggs would have been in a position to make a mistake like this.
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak. We don't have all the details, so I can't for sure speak about that. Parts of me want to say no, though, and I
Yeah,
do think there probably is a little bit of a lack of discipline at this point. Kind of coach is gone, like having below average season, I would say, maybe average. So yeah, maybe there's a lack of discipline in the locker room and kind of decision making on what these guys are doing. But to have a loaded gun in your car, I mean, that's not something that he just picked up in the last few weeks since Gruden left.
I don't know though, man. I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm not trying to say what he's doing is okay.
Yeah,
But I know a lot of people who drive around with a loaded gun in their
that
car.
is true. Yeah, that is true.
I'm like I said, I'm not condoning what he did, but
Yeah,
I'm thinking now about me bringing that up. I mean, that is I never, I don't, and I don't think I ever would, but I definitely know a handful of people who do. So
that is
maybe
100% true. Yeah.
maybe that's not something to really bring up, or focus on in this conversation, to be honest. But I mean, he's still an idiot for driving 156 drunk, and another thing that's interesting about the situation is I'm sure there's someone out there that's saying this wouldn't have happened if they weren't in Vegas.
Yeah.
This wouldn't have happened if they were over in Oakland, or wherever they were before coming to Vegas. So I'll be interested to see if that comes into the news, and also and God pray that this incident, nothing like this occurs. But if something does happen, is this going to be something that isn't taken lightly? I mean, they just built a huge stadium, but if incidents like this are occurring, which I think I would argue are definitely more likely to happen in a city like Vegas than maybe, I don't know, Washington D.C. So I I'd be interested to see if that becomes a theme as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think Josh Jacobs had some issues himself, also being in Vegas, with a DUI he actually got. So there could be something there. And I mean, you're right. You talk about Washington, but even think about Cleveland and this next guy we're about to talk about. I
Yeah.
mean, could you imagine just like, obviously, you probably have a good time in Cleveland, but it's nothing like Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, for you're exactly right. I mean, you bring up the next ticket, which is going to be our boy OBJ, right? And he's done pretty much the opposite
Yep.
of being in the news. Now, this is something all pretty recent, and I'm a little hesitant. It's what happened is, Odell's been very unhappy in. Um, with the Browns, right? That's something, as a Browns fan, you've picked up on that. You've seen stuff about that, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, he's having this rough time. He's definitely not getting the looks. Now, a lot of people would argue that OBJ has fallen off over the years, but is that because he's not getting thrown the ball? So it's kind of a sticky situation, and it makes it a lot harder because the Browns are doing well, right? If OBJ wasn't having success and the Browns weren't having success, I think this would be a little bigger. I think a lot more people would say, hey, throw the ball to OBJ. But the thing is, the Browns have really been successful as running the ball. Baker stepping back, not throwing it more than 20 yards down the field. And they've won good games, and several times over the year have been talked about a team that could potentially contend. And so, but anyways, so OBJ's not happy. And I guess at some point after the game, whether this was yesterday uh, or 2 days ago, I guess his father tweeted out some things, just basically bashing Baker Mayfield, right? So there was that disconnect, and then allegedly what happened is OBJ, not defended his father, but more so agreed with him, and then the Browns asked OBJ not to come to practice. So OBJ is not playing right now. Like he is not suited up. He didn't go to practice. He's not going to be in the game this weekend, and so it sounds like we're going to have some trade rumors kind of coming around, and I'm really excited for that because I believe, you know, Beckham's a good receiver. I think
Yep.
he could go somewhere and be just as successful. I mean, he was that successful with the Giants, right? He can be that successful with other teams. So I'm excited for his future. I'm interested to see how the whole situation plays out, especially kind of within Cleveland and how that affects his season. But yeah, so what's your take on OBJ? What's your thoughts about all of that?
Yeah, man. So I was just catching up to this after work today.
Cool.
Kind of a lot of this news broke while I was at work, and you could tell for one he was just unhappy. Wasn't really getting the targets he would like, especially his downfield throws, and really it's just not our game plan. So I personally, I'm with you. I think OBJ is a talented wide receiver. I think he's still got it. I think he is still a really good guy when it comes to downfield passes. You're throwing me off. Anyway, I think OBJ is still the man, but I don't think he's right for this offense. And I've actually been saying that he's not right for this offense for a long time now. I thought that we should have moved on from OBJ a while back. I thought we should have traded him when we kind of Stefanski came on and really changed the look of this offense in the field. Baker Mayfield's not a downfield thrower. You can tell he almost doesn't even really trust OBJ in a lot of situations. He's not relying on him. He will rely on his tight ends, dump it down to his running backs way more, and then he just loves Landry. He'll always throw to Landry. So I think it's best for the Browns and OBJ that we actually move on from him here. Trade him to a team that could really use him, especially in the playoffs coming up this season, and just go ahead and move on. I mean, we play better without him. I don't think we really need him in our offense.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if you saw this, but I remember probably a week ago or so, I saw something. It was either ESPN or it was like post game, like Fox Sports or something like that. But it was showing some passes or dropbacks by Baker where he wouldn't even look
Mm-hmm.
at Odell Beckham Jr. Like he would step back, he'd stay one side, and he'd focus. I think in the plays that they were showing at the time, it was like Njoku and Landry.
Yep.
But yeah, pretty interesting situation. Just more. Browns can't catch a break, man. It's
Yeah.
so rough.
Yeah, it's been and I won't even jump into their game too much this past week, but it's just we really can't catch a break. I don't think it's going to end up being our year, but hey, it is what it is. I still think we've turned around the organization. We're on the right trajectory. So, you want to talk about Michael Thomas? More news broke today that he is actually out for the season after re-injuring his ankle. I know you had him in a couple of your fantasy leagues. I had him in a couple of mine as well. Any thoughts here?
I'm heartbroken. I'm heartbroken, Wesley, and I'll tell you why. I committed to Michael Thomas. I drafted and have Michael Thomas in every single fantasy league that I'm in. I was even, I would argue, playing seasons or leagues with the mindset that Michael Thomas was going to come back and dominate the second half of the season. I don't know what kind of stupidity that was, thinking that was going to happen. And so I'm torn. I want to see Michael Thomas play. I think there's some really good receivers in the league. And I think Michael Thomas was at the top of that conversation. and then things started happening, and now he hasn't played for a year and a half, and now he's not in that conversation. And I was a big fan of Michael Thomas when Drew Brees was throwing him the ball, and I personally thought Michael Thomas was better than Devontae Adams.
Mm.
I don't think anybody in their right mind could say that now because no one's seen Michael Thomas play. But I'm excited to get him back on the field. One thing I did think was interesting is I heard a Stephen A. bit, which are always controversial, and take what Stephen A. Smith says with a grain of salt. But he introduced the idea that this had something to do with Jameis getting hurt.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it. And I was actually going to ask you about that. I
And
I do believe he's injured, but do you think there's also a little bit of I guess unhappiness here with the current situation of the team?
Yeah, I mean, you can bounce back to last season, and there were weeks where the it was said that the trade was going to be done. He was going to be out of New Orleans. So
Yep.
I agree with you. I don't think Michael Thomas loves the situation that he's in. And then I think during the offseason, you had some interesting things to go on with his injury that you could argue were team decisions or his decisions, but there was clearly kind of a disconnect going on between the two. And then you fast forward to this season, and he doesn't have Drew Brees throwing him the ball anymore. He has Jameis Winston, who knows how he feels about Jameis Winston, but now he's hurt. So it's interesting. The timing of everything is interesting. At the end of the day, I don't think it has to do, him sitting out the rest of the season. Doesn't have to do with the fact that that's going on. I think it would be different if they were contending or able to make the playoffs. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to. So I don't really understand. I'm with Michael Thomas actually. I as much as I hate to see it for my fantasy teams, if you're not coming back 100%, now you might as well take the rest of the season off.
Yep.
Who knows if you end up with a new team afterwards, but nothing you're going to really get out of these games, at that level. Now, if Michael Thomas was 5, 6 years younger, then no, you got to get back and you got to play, you got to prove yourself. But he's proven himself. He is that good. Whether he'll be that good when he returns, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. But he's proven that he doesn't need to stick out the last 3, 4 games, especially if he doesn't know if he's going to be 100% healthy.
Yep, I completely agree. I mean, there's no point in rushing it back for kind of the state of New Orleans this year. So,
And real quick, saying that, I want to bring up Derrick Henry real quick because Derrick Henry got hurt this week. He's
yep,
projected out 6 to 10 weeks. You
yep,
know, I would argue that as playoffs get closer and closer, the better that Tennessee is doing, the more likely you're going to see him closer to 6, 7 weeks. Whereas maybe if Tennessee kind of falls off, lose their bearing, they don't have a shot somehow at the playoffs, then I would not be surprised to not see Derrick Henry again the rest of the year because another guy who clearly proven himself, the guy's a dog. If your team's not playing for the best thing possible, why risk yourself?
yeah. I will say my thought on that though is I think he will be back because I think this Tennessee team will potentially make a playoff run. I
Yeah,
mean,
they very much could.
because if you look at the rest of their schedule, they got the Rams, the Steelers, and everything else should be a cakewalk. They got Saints, Texans, Patriots, Jags, Dolphins, Texans again. Like they shouldn't have any problem making the playoffs and being set up very well. I think he'll be back, but I do think they'll be okay without him for some of these games and be able
Mm.
to just kind of get by. And it might not be till the late season, but I mean, that's fine. He heats up as it gets colder out anyway, so they'll just wait till he's ready to roll.
Yeah, I don't know if I can agree with that one. Just kind of going back, I love the guy. How much I think this is really going to test Ryan Tannehill. I mean, he doesn't. Now teams are going to be able to drop back a little more. They don't have to worry about that run. I'm sure you're going to see Tennessee throwing more on first, second downs now. So you're going to see guys backing up. I'm interested to see how Ryan Tannehill takes that because honestly, even though he has AJ Brown and Julio, I would be interested to see how well he does because he had some of those targets early in the year. He wasn't successful. He lost his wide receivers, and they kind of lost their footing everywhere. I mean, I get that they stuck out that game and ended up winning, but I mean that was even a nail biter. It went to overtime, so I'm not so sold that Tennessee. I get they might have some easy games, but I wouldn't surprise to see a Steelers loss. I wouldn't, some of those other teams. I'm not sold on them yet, and I know we've gone back and forth with the Titans this year. It seems to be the theme with them. 1 week we're gonna love them, 1 week we're gonna hate them. Without Derrick Henry, I'm a big believer in Derrick Henry. So without him, I can't say that I think it's an easy trip to the playoffs for him.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It's more of just the strength of schedule isn't there, so I think they will still have a chance, and then we might just see them back. So, touch on another player kind of stepped away this week. So we had some news drop around Calvin Ridley, which is taking a step away from football for his mental well-being. Good for him if he thinks this is the right call. I mean, I'm glad he's doing that. But what type of impact do you think this makes on the Falcons team? I mean, the other week you were kind of talking pretty high about the Falcons, like they might make a run this year.
Yeah, I mean, Falcons have looked really good. I think the Falcons were piecing things together. I love what they're doing with Cordell Patterson. He's a fun guy to watch. Um, I mean, Calvin Ridley stepping away. For what was it? How do I say this? I don't want to say emotional issues, but whatever, head clearing, whatever he need, mental health,
Mental health,
right?
yep.
Thank you. So him, I'm not against it. I think if it was a player on my team, I'd probably have something else to say, and that's just me being a shitty fan. But hey, do what you got to do. I think very similar. I don't think Calvin Ridley is on the same level as Michael Thomas and Derrick Henry, but I think it's similar. I mean, I don't think I liked what I was starting to see from the Falcons. I don't think they're a playoff team. So that being said, Calvin Ridley probably knows that he's not fighting to win a Super Bowl this year. So if there's some stuff going on in his head where he's not comfortable, things aren't right, he's not clicking, take that time, man. Figure it out. There's some really exciting pieces on that offense. Some of their weapons are really young, and you're starting to see Pitts kind of step up, which I'm stoked about. I think he could be really good. So if somehow taking this year off, or a couple games, whatever it may be, you can clear that headspace and get back to where you need to be for next season to come out strong, I'd love to see it. I think it's good for him.
Yep. Yeah, I
But
definitely agree.
but in a sport like football, nonetheless, but in sports in general, the whole mental health is something that's very heavily opinionated by different people. There's big sides to it. You can already kind of pick up that I think for the most part, I think it's important for these players to look out for their mental health. But if it's a player on my team, I don't know if I'd argue the same case. But what's your thought about that? What do you think? Maybe specifically with Calvin Ridley, do you think that justifies not playing in these NFL games?
Yeah, I mean, so you hear a lot of different opinions on it. Like you're saying, it's a little bit of a controversial topic. So a lot of people will try to make the argument that hey, these guys are making a ton of money. Like go play football or sports or whatever you're doing, and just kind of deal with it. I don't really think that's fair, and I think some people try to argue it sometimes when someone's team's not doing all that great, they're probably more likely to um, maybe say that they need to take a step away. But I mean that kind of makes sense at the same time. I mean, if you've been on sports teams your whole life, if you're on a team that's doing well, just the um, atmosphere is better. Everyone's kind of picking you up. You feel good. So and when you're not doing too hot, it feels kind of crappy, and like the emotions around like the locker room are not all that great. So to me, that doesn't sound that crazy that would be the case. Like, yeah, if your team's not doing great and you're not gonna make the playoffs, like maybe you will be struggling more because you're not gonna have that pick me up every single day. But overall, I think it's a good thing. I mean, people need to when they have something going on. take the time to step away. And that's fine. They can come back. I mean, Atlanta's going to let him come back here in a year or so if he's ready to come back and play football. But overall, I think it's a really good thing. If you feel like you need it, definitely take the time and step away.
Yeah, I would also be interested to know, it's hard to say with all these situations I'm bringing up. If Julio was still in Atlanta, if Calvin would feel the same. Like, obviously Matt Ryan, very good quarterback, well-known NFL presence, successful and has shown that he knows what he's doing. And I definitely think is a leader in that locker room. And I can't say that Julio is some big leader. I don't really know how Julio is inside the locker room. But I definitely think Calvin Ridley looked up to him. Playing, the number two receiver behind a guy like Julio Jones, you have to look up to that person. It's like, I don't know if you heard, but Aaron Rodgers was saying that, one of his favorite quarterbacks of all time is Brett Favre. You play under a guy of that caliber, you just love to see him do what he does. And so to be so close and to be playing with him, I'd be interested to see if Calvin still had Julio on the team, if that would have aided in his issues right now. I don't know how close they were, and this is all speculation, but I'd be interested if there was a leader in the wide receiver room like Julio. Would Calvin be able to kind of handle this a little better?
Yeah, I completely agree. And not only that, but now after Julio left, I mean, he's the guy. I mean, yeah, you have the rookie coming in Pitts, but if you talk Atlanta Falcons going into the season, I mean, and you ask a lot of their fans like who's your favorite player, who's the guy you're really looking for after Julio left? I mean, it was Calvin Ridley.
It
I mean,
was
they took
definitely.
it. They expect him to take a major step up in a very pass heavy offense and be kind of the star receiver. And usually, what that will come along with is just a lot of pressure. So when things maybe didn't start out right, you don't know what's going on. Maybe Julio was kind of the glue that held it together. He didn't feel as much pressure when things were going wrong, and so on from the fan base. So I understand the situation he might be in, and I think it was the right call. I think anyone's questioning him is personally in the wrong. It's good to let him take some time away from football. If I were to guess, things will get back to normal, and we're going to see him back playing on the field here in a year or so. So I don't think there's too much to think about here.
Yeah,
But
I mean, we're still in an era where people sat out this season because of COVID.
yeah,
So if someone can sit out because of COVID, someone can sit out because mental health issues. Like I think you're right. Things always will bounce back. Everything will be cool, but yeah, I don't look too much into it. Um, Although it'd be nuts if Calvin Ridley just called quits.
hmm
Pulled the what's the guy from Andrew Luck on us. That'd be
yep,
pretty nuts.
yeah, would be crazy. Anything else stick out to you around week 8? So we're done kind of talking about the individual players we had, but I guess any big games you want to talk about?
There were actually some good games this week. There's a lot of crazy stuff that happened. The only thing I want to touch on is going to be the Titans Colts game, and I want to bring this up, and we'll get into our picks later because they were not very good. Okay, but the Titans Colt game was kind of crazy from the jump. A couple turnovers. Derrick Henry got hurt, and kind of ended with the situation where coming down to the last few minutes in the fourth quarter, it was tied 24-24, and they were going back and forth. And I took the under at 51. Right, so 24-24 was tied, and the Colts had the ball at like the 2 yard line, their own 2 yard line, right? And Carson Wentz drops back and he's getting sacked and he throws the worst pass I've ever seen that goes probably 3 feet to a Titans defender who catches it and gets a pick six, right? So that made the game, 31-24, and then the it hit the over, right? Now, couple things with this. In hindsight, what Carson Wentz did was actually really smart because if he had gone down for the safety, um, the Titans would have gone up by 2. It would have been 26-24, hitting the under, okay? And then the Titans would have gotten the ball back and been able to run out the clock, right?
Yep.
Instead, and that would have been great news because I also took Titans money. right? So that was going to hit both. Like I was hyped about it. If he just took the sack, if Carson Wentz just took the sack, everything would have been okay. But no, he throws up this wobbler that goes a yard and gets pick six. And then, you know, at this point, the over hit, and I wanted a good football game. I wanted Tennessee to come out on top, but I wanted a good football team. So then the Colts get the ball back, and they come down the field and they score a touchdown, right? Which is huge. And then the game goes into overtime. It goes back and forth pretty crazy. And then the Titans seal it with a field goal to win the game. But it was a nuts game. It was a fun one to watch, but it's bullshit because if Carson Wentz took the sack, took the safety, the under hits, we're all good.
Yep. Yep. So I
But
guess one thing that kind of sticks out to me though is this Packer Cardinals game. Oh man, that what a fun game! It really just,
great
I
game.
mean, these are some of the best teams in the NFL. They have
Yeah,
to be.
I fully agree. They are. I mean, these are both Super Bowl contenders. It's going to come down to it. Definitely excited to see. What a great Thursday night game. I know this week, I think we're back to the bullshit.
Yep.
Let me look. Yeah, Jets Colts. Thank you very much. Um, but that was a great game. This was one of those times you're really happy there's that Thursday night game. You know, because if this is in a 1 o'clock slot, you might not watch it so you can watch your Browns, you know, or something like that. So I was stoked it was on Thursday night, an early taste of, you know, NFL weekend. And it was a great game. Absolutely. The other game I thought was interesting that I'll bring up, you know, actually, you know, we should talk about a few things now that I'm looking at the full schedule. Um, the Bengals Jets game, that was rough for the Bengals.
Yep.
That was really rough. Can't believe they lost. And then um, the Patriots Chargers. I in no way thought that the Patriots were going to beat the Chargers. I was for sure. It was almost a lock that the Chargers win that game. Patriots take that by 3.
To me, so I thought for sure going to just run with this one. So the Jets having their backup quarterback in. Bengals debatably one of the hottest teams in football going into this week. And the line was minus 10.5, and I thought for sure the Bengals would be able to go past that. But to my surprise, Jets hang around, end up winning this game. I mean, they almost like the Bengals almost won. They were up, I think, by 11 going in with like 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and the Jets were able to come back and pick this one up. But this was a huge surprise to me. I still think Bengals are legit. Mike White, which is the quarterback from the Jets right now, he's not playing bad football. The Jets are not playing bad football as a whole, and it kind of surprised me. But
I mean,
yeah,
it's still football. You know, good teams lose games. You know,
yep,
that's just how it works. There's a reason why we don't see, you know, 16 now 17 and 0 teams. You know, it's super rare. And that's just the truth of it is, and this is what makes, you know, the gambling that much more interesting is any given week the Jets can beat the Bengals. You
100%.
know, so
Yep.
that was interesting. And then I just want to bring it up because we differed in opinions here. Seahawks took the Jags 31-7. Easy game for them.
Yeah, I think Urban's in trouble. I don't think he'll finish out the season.
It all boils down to Urban.
That's
Get him
all.
out of there.
That's all I'm gonna say about that. But I don't. I think there's a chance they will not win another game this season. To be
Oh
completely honest with
no.
you, they play the Texans, so maybe they have a shot there. But I think the Jets will stop them. That's about it. But I don't have too much more to talk about the Jags. I'm giving up. I've lost all hope, and I'm done betting against the Seahawks. I don't care who their quarterback is. Russ is coming back. They'll probably be a playoff team. Let's go ahead and jump into week 9 though. Anything that stands out to you, Jack?
Sad to see Washington doesn't have a game. To be honest, I'm kind of happy though because it means I don't have to watch another loss. So that's good. Looking at the schedule here, nothing too crazy. Packers Chiefs. I like to see that. I still will not sit here and say that the Chiefs are a bad team. I still like to watch their offense play. They've been not so great lately, but I still think Packers Chiefs will be a good game. Outside of that, I think the Patriots Panthers. I'm still rooting for the Panthers. I have no idea why, but I still like what I'm seeing. And now that Christian McCaffrey's almost back, I'm excited to see how that kind of rolls in. And then the Titans Rams game, another, I think, really good Sunday. What is that, Sunday night?
Yep, Sunday night.
Yeah, it's a great Sunday night game. Talking about the Titans, I think I've watched every Titans game this year, and then against a team like the Rams, who I'd love to hear your opinion on them, their new acquisition. You heard about this?
Yep. Picking up Von Miller.
Yeah,
Oh,
Von Miller. Wait, you got him from the Broncos?
yep. He's
So
playing for the Broncos.
that's going to be insane. I'd hate to be a quarterback going against the Rams. To know you have Aaron Donald and Von Miller just coming after you, no one's safe.
Yeah, I'll
Uh,
be honest with you. I actually kind of spoke down on the Rams. I think one of our like first or second episodes. So I was real high on them. They kind of looked. They lost a game, and then they let me pull up their schedule again real quick. Yeah, so they lost to the Cardinals, and then they played this. They didn't look great to me against the Seahawks. And then they came back on with the Giants, and since then they've been playing all right. Now I do think they've had a pretty weak schedule the last 3 weeks. I mean, they played the Giants, the Lions, and Texans. Um, but I started out real hot, and I've just been back and forth. But I do think this is a good football team, and I think this acquisition will only continue to improve. To be honest with you, I think the Rams blow out the Titans this week. Uh,
really?
Yes, I do, and I've been speaking high. I spoke pretty high about the Titans earlier. I think they will be a playoff team, but just the first week off losing Derrick Henry against the Rams, this is a good football team. I
Yeah.
I think the Rams just gonna come in here and just take care of business. To be honest with you, it's at LA as well.
Hmm.
So Tennessee's on the road. I do think this will be a pretty convincing win. And again, that's not talking bad about the Titans' outlook for the rest of the season. I just don't see them doing much here. But really, for the rest of the schedule, I think this is a little bit of an off week, to be honest with you. I mean, you threw out some good games. The game that I like the most is really against my Brownies against the Bengals, to be honest with you. I think the Bengals is a good football team. But I think the Browns still are playing well, and we're seeing them play, all their games. They're barely losing when they lose to against really good football teams. The Steelers game, even though it was frustrating last week towards the end, it was a fun game to watch. I think this will be the same, so I'm really eyeing that. And then also another game I'm paying attention to is Chargers Eagles, so I think that'll be a fun one as well. So we see it Chargers are beatable now. Eagles are kind of back and forth. I don't know how I really feel about them, but I think it'll be a fun one to tune in with some pretty good offenses to check out that game on Sunday at 4.
Yeah. No, definitely. Um, I agree with you. I'd love to hit the over on the Chargers Eagles. I think that's something I'm going to have to participate in. I'm guessing it's got to be something in the 50s. But I mean, what the Eagles just put up like 35 points or something like that. So to go against a team like the Chargers, it looks like the Eagles' offense is starting to shape up a bit. I definitely like the over there. Not to get into our sports picks too early, but you
Yeah.
know,
I like it. Let's talk World Series real quick. So the Atlanta Braves went on to win the World Series
hmm.
against the Houston Astros. I mean, I know that might hurt you a little bit, but I don't follow baseball a whole lot. But I love to see the Astros lose after that whole situation back in 2019, I believe.
Hmm.
So pretty fun. Any takeaways there?
Yeah, I mean, dude, I definitely didn't want to see the Astros win. So that's good. There was a small piece of me that, their manager is Dusty Baker. And there was a small piece of me that wanted him to get a ring. I thought that would have been cool, but they're cheaters. By the way, Dusty Baker was not there when the cheating was going on. I would have liked to seen it, but that's about it. I didn't want to see the Astros win, so I don't even know how that would have happened. But Braves, once again, division rivals of the Nationals. I think the only positive takeaway that I can really get is that it makes our division look better. Not happy that either of these teams were in the World Series. Good for the Braves, whatever. But at least now our division has a little more credibility.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. Cool. Well, I don't think there's a whole lot more to touch on there, but one thing I 100% want to jump into before we get into our locks of the week. Uh, we got another Formula One race this weekend. So we are actually in Mexico for the Mexican City Grand Prix. So we touched on this a couple weeks back. The race for the Drivers' Championship is starting to heat up, and I'm really excited to watch this race. We got another 5 p.m. race, so we'll be able to 5
Are you
p.m.
sure about that? I thought it was
Wait.
2.
Let me
I think
double
it's
check
2.
this. 2 p.m. race.
Yeah,
Yes,
come on, this guy.
I know. I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm just kidding.
2 p.m. race, so we'll be able to watch it during the daytime. I know I'll be hopping on Discord if Jack wants to as well. But I'm super excited to see how this goes. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, no, I'm pumped. It's been week after week. I've been loving F1. I've been a little upset that we didn't have races last week. Um, I've been kind of waiting for it to come back and swing into things, and it's that time. We're down in Mexico. Every race it gets closer and closer. Um, I, I don't have any doubt that you're going to see Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton fighting again to come out on top. And another thing, as things heat up and the end of the season comes, and the fight is not only between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. That's the biggest one, no doubt. But you have Ferrari and McLaren who are really fighting for that kind of third team, because you have Lewis with Mercedes, Lewis and Bottas. You have Verstappen and Perez with Red Bull, but then you have your Ferrari team and your McLaren team, and they're fighting for that third position. And so McLaren actually has my probably favorite F1 racer, Danny Ricciardo. I would definitely urge anybody who doesn't know who that is to kind of look him up and watch some of his videos. Super fun guy. If you haven't seen Drive to Survive on Netflix, I definitely would encourage that too. That's a whole kind of documentary series about F1. But in the earlier episodes, they talk a lot about Daniel Ricciardo as well. So he was a really cool person to kind of get to know, and so I've been a big fan of him. So you have Danny Ricciardo, and then it is, I believe, Lando Norris is the other driver for McLaren. And then the two Ferrari drivers, I actually am scratching who it is. Let me see here.
Charles Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc and Sainz, right?
Yep, and Signs. Yep,
Yep.
Carlos
So
Signs.
basically, going back to kind of the structure of F1, you have this drivers championship with each specific driver is fighting to be the top one. And that's where you're seeing that big battle between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, who's going to be the number one driver of the season. But then while that's going on, you still have your championship between the teams. And so we still actually have Mercedes and Red Bull fighting it out, although it looks like Mercedes has a good lead. But then in the third and fourth spot, we have Ferrari and McLaren, and they're battling out to see who gets third. And a big part of that ends up being money that you can then put into the car and stuff like that. So teams are really finding it out. And if you watch the race in the United States, you saw throughout the whole race, the Ferraris and the McLarens going back and forth. And so I'm really excited to see how that heats up. And this is kind of where I'm speculating we might start to see some bumps and bruises between these guys as far as when they're on the track and kind of running into each other, bumping tires, which just makes F1 that more interesting.
Yeah, man, I am so excited for this weekend. You got me hooked, to be honest with you.
It's great stuff.
I can't stop following it. I am super excited for the rest of the season, and I really hope this. I know you've mentioned it a couple other times. I really hope this becomes more mainstream, and maybe some of our listeners get interested in it, because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun once you start to understand everything that goes into each race. But I definitely want to go ahead and jump into locks of the week. So we've been going on here for about an hour and a half now. So we'll go ahead and start wrapping things up. One thing I do want to mention, like we've kind of alluded to a couple times this show, we had a terrible last week. So we kind of introduced a new concept to you guys where we will be making locking in 3 bets weekly. So our 2 locks of the week. And then we're also going to have a discussion for a third pick that we like here on the show that we're going to go ahead and lock in as part of a 3-leg parlay. So we're keeping it super simple. We both put $100 in a piece. Every pick is a $25 bet. Okay, so as we've said before, last week was rough. So we went through $75 like it was nothing. Missed
Pretty
every
much
single
all
pick.
of it. Yeah.
Yep. So that puts us down at $125. So I'm actually gonna find a way to share this for everyone. I don't know the details there yet, so you guys can kind of follow our journey. But the goal is, and I'm not going to announce anything right now because we didn't discuss pre-show, is if we could start making some money here, we'd like to do something exciting with the money if we ever get up. So we'll
No,
see
I
where
mean,
this ends up.
hold on. So is it still the same thought that we had kind of last week?
Yep. So
I,
I
I'm all for it. I'd let them have it.
All right, so kind of our thought was we were discussing like, hey, so we're putting in a little bit of money here. What can we do with this if we get up? I mean, we want to keep this show going, keeping everyone engaged. So our thought was, as we've mentioned a couple times about Jack and myself going to a Formula One race next year. I'm dead set on making it happen, no matter whether we get anything, if we win any money here or lose it all. But one thing we thought was cool is let's come up with some goals that we'd like to hit to pay for our tickets individually, and then if for some reason we go way up, we'd like to bring someone along with us. So part of the
Bang.
show, yep, and we don't know the details there yet, and likely there's a good chance we're about to go to zero anyway.
Yeah, no, yeah. To be clear, like none of those things are gonna happen. But
Yeah,
if they happen, it'll be really cool. And like you said, we'd use that money to get tickets. I think either to I would like to do the Miami one, but who knows? It might take us 2 years, to be able to put up enough to get going. So,
yeah,
who knows? It might be the Texas one again, but
yeah.
yeah, great
But if
idea.
we get going in the right direction here, we'll set some actual goals. Right now, we just gotta try to break even. So,
Yeah,
um,
we're just trying to get, maybe back up to, what we started at the
yep,
very least.
100%. But just like last week, I'm gonna lock these in live, and we'll document them. So let's go ahead and kick things off, Jack. Who do you got?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about the game, but I mentioned the over in it. But I am going to swing Chargers -2. I love the Chargers. Is that what you're seeing on your end?
I'm pulling it up right now. Should have been a
Um,
little more prepared.
No, you're good, but yeah, I just love the Chargers. I get that Justin Herbert maybe haven't had the best past couple weeks. I still think they're a dominant football team, and I'm still excited to see how they kind of carry out the rest of the season. I think they take the Eagles pretty well. To be honest, I get the Eagles are coming off a big win. I think Chargers -2 is a little disrespectful, but I love that. I love that because I'd love to take a Chargers -2 spread, so that's where I'm sitting.
Sounds good. Yeah, I have Chargers -2 as well on DraftKings. So
Okay,
I'll go
perfect.
ahead and lock that in. So we got 20. Let me pull this back up. So we're betting $25 to win $47.72. So
It's a
maybe
start. It's a
let's get a
start.
yep, let's get a winner here. So we went ahead and locked that one in. And I'm gonna go ahead and jump to my pick now. So I'm actually going to the Patriots game. So I'm looking at Patriots, and I'm gonna check the spread real quick. I always don't want to jump the gun and say something that's not accurate. So I want to check it right before I guess I make the claim. But I am seeing New England at -3.5 against the Carolina Panthers. So I know you talked a little bit about liking the Panthers.
Mm.
I did too about a month ago, and ever since then they've just dropped back off. I mean, I'm not super into Sam Darnold here. I think he is regressing week by week. They are getting Christian McCaffrey back, but that is not this week. I do not believe.
It could
Um,
be. It could
it
be.
could be. It's possible, but I'm not liking the chances there. And honestly, the Patriots are starting to heat up. So it's crazy. I didn't think they'd have a good season, but I'm done betting against Bill Belichick. I think the Patriots win here by a touchdown, -3.5. So that's why I'm locking in as my pick.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest. I don't love it, but hey, I have confidence in you, so we'll swing with it.
Yep. All right, so you want to go ahead and jump to our third lock of this week and kind of discuss it out. Go ahead and kick us off with like what are you thinking? What's coming to mind?
Yeah, for sure. And to keep in mind the lines that I'm seeing could be different than yours. So we'll have to double check that. Couple just kind of looking through things. So I mentioned it earlier. I still really like the over on the Chargers game. I think that could be a shootout. Looking at it though, I'm scared you're going to say Rams -8 because I don't like it. I like the Giants plus 2.5. I've liked what I've seen from the Giants. Contested the Chiefs, great. Um, you know, I think they're starting to put pieces together, and just with another thing happening in Las Vegas, who knows what that locker room's like? Who knows how they're going to come out come Sunday? I also, dude, I'm torn about it because I like the Bengals -2, but I don't even want to bring that up to you because I think you'll kind of just shoo that one away. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I like the Ravens -6, and or I'll tell you this because someone brought this to my attention, and I have to go back and check. But when I initially saw this line for the Cowboys game, it was a couple days ago, and it was 6.5. And it was amazing because at that time, Dak Prescott was not scheduled to play in the next game. So is Dak Prescott playing next week?
Uh, I don't know if he is or not, but I'm seeing 9.5 right now on DraftKings. I don't
I,
think.
I'm just saying if Dak Prescott does not play, and it looks like he was limited in practice, so he probably will end up playing. But I don't necessarily, Broncos haven't showed me a ton. I thought the Redskins, or sorry, Washington football team was actually going to beat them last week, and I was wrong about that. But I mean, 10 points is a lot of points, and so I'm not complete. I think the Cowboys are a really good team, but I'm not completely sold on them. Probably just because they're in my division. I'd like to think that they could be not as good as they are. So with Dak being a little shaken up and everything, I'd be interested to see the Broncos and see if they could pull out 9.5. But that's my thoughts. What'd you hear? What are you thinking?
Yeah, so personally, I'm kind of with you on the over on the Chargers Eagles game. So I
Mm-hmm.
really like that. It seems like they're both putting up some big points right now. Um, so I hate to say it, but I love your pick about the Bengals, to be honest with you, for all betting purposes.
Right.
And I just don't think I can get myself to bet against my own team. It's just
Exactly.
it's tough.
It's so hard. I mean, the thing is, I think every week Washington plays, other than maybe last week when they played the Broncos. Actually, I lied because I put a bunch of money down that we'd beat the Saints as well, and we lost to the Saints. But I mean, almost every week I look at the spread against us, and I'm like, that's probably a good play,
Yeah, yeah.
So I get your reserves there. It's definitely tough. Um, but just with your thoughts about the Bengals and everything, a lot of questions with Cleveland right now. Kareem Hunt isn't back yet, so it'll be interesting to see how they match up. But yeah, if you don't want to take that game, I don't mind staying away from it.
Yeah, so I'm personally really liking this over 50 over on the Chargers
Yep.
Eagles. I mean, both these guys are high scoring teams with not great defenses. I feel like there's no way this doesn't go over 50, so I think it's a lock.
Yeah. All right. Let's put it in there. I think
All right,
that'll do it.
so I'm gonna go ahead and lock this in. So I got the over on the Chargers. I got. Let me scroll through here. I should stage this a little bit more ahead of time, to be honest with you.
Well, it's kind of
Um,
hard because you can't. You could. I don't think you could stage different bets.
Yeah, I got New England at -3.5.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna go back down to the Chargers and say -2 there for the win. So for this
Boom.
parlay, we got
Pitiful parlay.
pitiful parlay. We got plus 595 odds. So if we bet $25, we're looking to win $173. Are we ready to lock it in?
Let's lock it in. And I
All
will
right.
say, our pitiful pick last week, the Cowboys did cover. I think we had them at 2.5
Yep.
in
Yep.
that parlay, so they did cover. So if we can just figure our shit out, maybe together we could do something.
Yeah, it was the only thing. We were close though, man. I mean
Dude,
it was right there.
like I said, The damn Titans, man. If
Yep.
Carson Wentz just took the sack, took the safety, the under would have hit. But enough of that.
Cool deal. Well, I think that's it for this show. I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna finish it up here. Remember to check us out on Spotify. That's where you can find our podcast.